Hello, my name is Marvin Wierich, and this is a story about conducting experiments with human participants. If you conduct such an experiment, in the beginning you usually introduce the participants to the study. You tell them what the study is about, what they will have to do, they sign a consent form, and then the actual study begins, right? I want you to imagine the following scenario, which I observed happens from time to time. You're the study leader and you conduct an on-site experiment. A participant, let's call her Caroline. She enters the room, you welcome her and ask her to sit down in front of a computer. Then you start to explain to her that she would have to look at a source code snippet and rate its understandability on a scale from 1, easy to understand, to 10, hard to understand. You notice that Caroline is a little nervous about the upcoming task, so you have good intentions to tell her that the code will not be too difficult to understand. She appears less nervous now and the actual study begins. Okay, take a second to think again about what just happened in the first few minutes of your experiment. In your study, your participant has to rate the understandability of a code snippet. And before she provides her rating, you told her that the code will not be too difficult to understand. First, the obvious, Caroline is now biased. Specifically, we speak of anchoring bias. Caroline is now anchored in her assessment of the code's understandability. And this will be reflected in her rating. Second, maybe less obvious, no one is to blame here. Yes, as a study leader, you could have stuck strictly to your script, but you just wanted your participant to feel comfortable. It happens that you deviate from your script. In the end, we are all just humans and we can't always completely control what we do. Now you could say, okay, then let's just do an online experiment. We get rid of the human that introduces participants to the study. Instead, participants have to read a text. Over the past years, I have seen a lot of these texts that introduce participants to online experiments, and I can tell you one thing, they contain a lot of potential anchors. One quick example. There are 3 tasks in this study. For the first 2 tasks, you have 10 minutes. For the third task, you have 20 minutes of time. What does this part of the study description imply? As a participant, I would now expect the third task to be the most complicated, because the study gives me the most time to solve it. Good. I think you got the point. Participants can easily be anchored by contextual factors. We don't want this to happen because in a controlled experiment, you want to make sure that the effect you observe is caused by an independent variable that you control, not by some cognitive bias that you don't know about. Now you might ask what we actually did in our study. In summary, we provide evidence for this anchoring effect to be there and to influence subjective code understandability evaluations. We conducted an online experiment with 256 participants, of which 50 were software professionals and around 200 were computer science students. Participants were divided into 3 groups. Depending on the group, they saw a slightly different introduction text to the study. All 3 groups were told that they will see a Java code snippet, which is 20 to 30 lines long and deals with a string as input. That was all the information already for the control group. The first treatment group was given an additional hint in the text that the code snippet will be easy to understand. The second treatment group was instead given a hint that the code snippet will be hard to understand. Then each participant, independent of the group, had to rate the understandability of one of 2 code snippets. What did we find? The anchoring effect is significant. What you tell participants at the beginning of a study influences their code understandability ratings. And it doesn't matter if they are students or professionals. In our study, they were all equally anchored in their ratings. As a researcher, what can you take away from our experiment? Be aware of the anchoring effect. If you want to find out how well a participant understood a piece of code, whenever possible, use comprehension measures that are more robust than subjective ratings. You could, for example, ask comprehension questions about the code and measure a combination of time and correctness. A previous study has shown that although participants get easily anchored in their subjective ratings, This anchoring will likely not cause a placebo effect that influences the actual comprehension performance in terms of time and correctness. Okay, so this means that a hint about the difficulty of the code does not influence the time it takes developers to understand it, and also not their answers to comprehension questions about the code. But such a hint influences their subjective perception of the code's understandability, as we have shown in our study. The whole topic of designing code comprehension experiments and cognitive biases is super exciting, and I would be happy to exchange ideas with you. Our paper is already publicly available. Here's the link. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them now. Thanks for your attention and see you.